You're welcome back to Arise Prime Time with me, Sulaiman Lede. Well, for more on this, I'm joined in the studio by current affairs analyst, Professor of Communications and Deputy Dean of the Postgraduate School at Bayes University here in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Good to see you, Professor Adeniyi, and thanks for your time. Well, quite interesting conversations we've had today. The president is back, so many Nigerians are anticipating, hoping to see that ministerial list and see the caliber of persons. For Austin Organa, the publisher of the will specifically, he mentioned Konkonso, who was a presidential candidate making that list, and what that could mean to the dynamics of Kano politics. He thinks that the president is already looking at the next election, not in 2027.
Well, I think that's it's okay. It's something that is right to say, but I don't think that the next election should be our priority. We should be concerned about statecraft, about governance, and not just governance, but good governance. You know, there's a reason why the president was elected in the first instance. There's a reason why after every 4 years, you know, democracy, or the kind of democracy we're envisaging, expect that another person will come to the fray, or maybe a tenure will be renewed. You know, the essence is just to inject new energy into the system, you know, so that it can take governance to a high level. You know, so our focus should actually be delivery of service to the people for the uplifted progress of the system. Yes, I know that it is political processes that often lead to the emergence of leaders, you know, but politics and politicking shouldn't be a priority all the time, especially in a post-election stage when we're supposed to be settling down to governance. You know, yeah, the cabinet is going to be constituted. We expect that it should reflect so many things. It should be about. It's going to be about political compensation, payment of political debt. You know, but it should also be about the injection of technocrats, you know, competence, you know, into the mix. And going by President Bola Tinubu's pedigree, is that kind of person that has an eye, you know, for competence, you know, for bringing up people who can deliver the goods, you know. We hope that he did it in Lagos, very obvious, you know. We just hope that he will replicate it at the center. And of course, Nigeria is not, you know, it's not lacking in this regard. We don't lack experts. We don't lack competent people. There are so many of them around that he can shop for. And of course, he's been elected for some time now. I think he should be close to concluding on this decisioning process, as the case could be.
Yeah, speaking of which, let's bring it to your area, education. And that's one sector many Nigerians were never too excited about in the last administration. Now, what kind of Nigerian do you see? What qualities of person do you see manning our education sector, knowing full well that hasn't actually caught the attention of many?
It's very unfortunate that in the last administration we didn't really get it right, and even the minister confessed that he knew next to nothing about education in a country where we have some of the best professors in the world.
How surprised were you?
I was not, well, it was just it was a mixed feeling really, because I didn't expect the person who appointed him to depart from the norm that he set for himself at some point, you know, because he wasn't known for searching for experts, you know. He was known largely for chronism. I'm appointing you because I know you, because you've been with me for some time, you've been loyal for some time, somebody that I know is recommending you, so I trust you because I trust that person. You know, those kind of mundane things, those kind of inanities, you know. But we expect a departure from that in the new air that we are breathing, you know. Yes, there can be political compensation, but it shouldn't be at the expense of expertise, because it is the experts that will actually deliver. If you look at even from the military era of President Babangida up to the civilian administration of President Obasanjo, to Jonathan, to Yar'Adua, there are some experts, you know, that man some key ministries. There are some ministries that are key, essential ministries that require, you know, specialized skill and knowledge and experience, you know, for them to be appropriately to deliver the goods. And education is one of them. Health sector is another one. Attorney General is another one. Finance is another one. Okay, look at the latter administration, for instance. We had somebody whose priority, you know, to my understanding, was just about the economics of borrowing, you know. And we're just talking about borrowing. We're not talking about production, about manufacturing, you know, about expanding our resource base, you know, the solid minerals, the agricultural sector, and all other boosting revenue, maybe taxation. We were not ingenious in terms of thinking about how we can grow our revenue base. We were just quite comfortable with borrowing, and the thing was expanding. The tragedy of it was that even the borrowing, how are we sure that the monies were appropriately used, that we're channeled into the right they were trying into the right heads, other than being embezzled or being victim, again, if that's the right thing to say, a word to use, of corruption again. I had you discussing with Okolobo earlier on. I mean, you can't undermine the fact that the malaise is still upon us, and the solution, in my own opinion, really is for us to be concerned about prevention. Because we've been talking about corruption. Prevention, because it's something that we can actually deal with, by simply talking about apprehension. We've been talking about apprehension since the immediate post-independent period. Do not forget the 10%ers question. From then we've been thinking about apprehension, prosecution, and maybe sanction. But has it really worked? Rather, perpetrators have actually been looking for ways to circumvent this process. So why don't we prevent? Realizing that a human being can actually be tempted, faced with huge resources. And this is not just peculiar to Nigeria. It can happen everywhere in the world. But in other parts of the world, they've increased their preventive, they strengthen their preventive mechanism through technology. That will prevent you from manipulating the system the way we're trying to do with the electoral system, for instance, with beavers, with IREF, whether it worked or not is another thing. Bring in technology to help us in payment patterns, in the contracting process. And please, by the time they come in, of course, you see that you are not dealing with an inanimate and
at least those would deter people.
Yeah, it would deter. But if we leave the system like this, thinking that we can just be concerned about apprehension, we've been talking about it over the years. The last administration was used anti-corruption as one of its campaign pillars, but it didn't work. We will say Nigeria was corruption-free in the Buhari period. Of course, we can just tell that only to the Marines.
Well, we're not going into the sea now, but again, it's a fine place for us to say many thanks, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Always a delight having you here on Arise Prime Time. Well, that's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Do join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Many thanks for watching, and goodbye.